Turns out that finishing up one of these basic trucks still takes quite a bit of work. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Flip That Truck. If you're not familiar with this series, what we do is we start with an inexpensive truck. We try to work up, trade up, fix up until we end up with a nice truck at the end. This is episode 2 of Truck 2 of season 2. And what we have in front of us here is what I had compared to the yoga pant, pumpkin spice, Ugg boot wearing version of an RC car. Just that basic parts list build that people build as a custom truck. Flat rail chassis power wagon build. Someone who wants to put together a parts list custom, line killer type truck. This is usually similar to what they end up with. This one, again, has TRX4 Sport axles underneath of it, locked out, overdrive, underdrive, power wagon body like we talked about, Savox 1230 SG servo, Tekin motor, Tekin FXR speed controller, the TRX4 Sport center mounted transmission, so it does give us a nice forward mounted motor. Got a Delrin electronics tray up front, and that's meant to hold like a comp style pack, a small battery pack, usually 3S LiPo, 1300 milliamp range, gives you decent amount of runtime, but nothing crazy. We also now have rock sliders on this that could hold a battery pack as well and keep your center of gravity lower. Might be the route that I would go personally. But rock sliders are one thing that this truck did not have when we started with. And what I decided to do was take a set of the Vanquish VS410 rock sliders and modify those to bolt onto this flat rail chassis. Now, I was told that this is a V2 G-Speed chassis. It's like a G10 type deal. It's got a slanted center skid plate, and I think that's pretty much how people, the visual style of it is what allowed people to confirm the actual model of the chassis. It's an older chassis, but flat rail chassis is pretty much a flat rail chassis. So like I said, we got those rock sliders on there. That gives us just a nice base on the sides where we can mount a battery. You could move other electronics there, just depending on what you're looking for. But I got those mounted up. I had to do a little bit of kind of carving and clearancing to fit around some of the other screws. The bolt pattern for the actual sliders matches up to one of the bolt patterns on the chassis, because this chassis was designed around being able to fit a standard SCX-10 style skid plate. But since it's got a Traxxas skid plate in there now, those bolts weren't all used. So I had to, just make sure that things cleared around. It wasn't that big of a deal. A little bit of time on the Dremel and I knocked that out. The nice thing about the Power Wagon body and why so many people use it in this type of combination is that it's got just this narrow pinched front end, which gives you tons of clearance for your tires to clear everything under extreme steering, even at extreme articulation. The Power Wagon body is an absolute performer and a good looking body at the same time. So it makes sense why everybody decides to use this type of setup. But being that it does have this narrowing design, at the sliders, it's not straight and flat. So I wanted to kind of come up with something to finish off the sliders a little bit more. I didn't end up using the VS410 outer portion of the slider. While that does work with the Power Wagon body, I've used it in the past, I wanted to just try something different. So I opened up Fusion 360, which is a free CAD program, and I just quickly designed up a set of just caps for these sliders. Took me maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Threw them on my 3D printer, and in an hour and 20 minutes, we had a left and a right actual cap here for the outside. Kind of fits the taper of the body. It also gives the body something to, keep it from popping out. A very simple setup. In general, what I was trying to do is just finish up areas of this to give whoever ends up with this truck just a solid base to start from. The Power Wagon body, as we showed last time, was brand new. Now it's been considerably trimmed. I got it to sit basically as low as I could on the front shock tower area. I set it down, marked it, trimmed it, and then got it to that point. So it's basically as low as it will go in the front hood area, just keeping everything nice and sleek. Trimmed it to the sliders to match. And then once we had that all set, that's when we got to work on a very simple rear tube section. And when I say tube, I actually mean solid rod. This is 1/8 inch solid rod. So it's a smaller diameter than typical, but I did that just to keep the weight down. This was meant to just be simple, but still tube work in the back, because I think that anybody aiming for this type isn't looking for like overly crazy tube work. They're just trying to keep things light and simple. That's what I did here. Now, I had been thinking about trying to add some, panels to it and change some things up, or possibly close in the bed area. But ultimately what I came to the conclusion of is that it's likely not that important to whoever could end up with this. So I ended up just leaving it at this point. If somebody would like to add inner panels to it or outer panels or top panel, tons of options, go nuts. This rear tube work is something that I just went out there and just knocked out. It maybe an hour and a half to just throw this together. It's not my finest work. It's just something to take out there and beat up on the rocks and have something that looks slightly different than just a regular Power Wagon body. I used a set of mounting tabs from RC Fab Tabs. These guys just popped up here recently, kind of a new RC company. Anyway, and they've got an awesome little assortment of mounting tabs, long, short, bumper style, all kinds of different mounts. Super handy. I was running low and it couldn't have come at a better time that these guys popped up. The RC Fab Tab stuff was just the perfect thing that I needed, and I really like the design of their tabs. I haven't gone crazy with cleaning up any welds. They're maybe a little bit bigger on the back area. I put a piece of 3/16 DOM tubing across the very back side of this bed to act as a rear bumper. That'll get you technical rear bumper points if you care about Sorka scale points. And if you wanted, you could also run a sway bar through that, and the sway bar end links would get you close to the actual axle mount. So depending on if somebody was after that, it would be an easy option to use. But 3/16 DOM rather than solid rod, just to keep it, again, a little bit lighter. I used my TIG welder to build this whole thing. I actually used silicon bronze filler rod rather than regular TIG filler rod. This is more like a TIG brazing rather than a TIG welding. Very easy. It's got a lower melting point. Overall, just super handy for RC cages. If you have a TIG welder, which is not something that everybody has, but if you do, pick up some of that silicon bronze, and man, it's so nice to work with on this type of boat. But with that, it's been almost 2 months since I did the first episode on this. Just found a little bit of time over the last 3 or 4 days to get back to work on it, and I think that it's time to basically allow this thing to move on. It's not 100% finished up with everything. It doesn't have a front bumper on it, although I did fix the rotation issue of that panhard mount. That panhard mount was currently only mounted in one spot, so it liked to rotate. I decided to drill and make another hole, tap that so that I could put another screw in there so it's got a nice firm attachment point, no more rotation. Super simple, just a little detail that needed finished up so that this truck was sturdy. But like I said, it still needs a front bumper, something simple there, but whatever the buyer's style is will, dictate what they would prefer to see. Other than that, I believe this thing is pretty much ready to, bind a receiver to and drive it. It still has that TRX style battery plug. I didn't change that out. If a buyer really wants an XT60 or a Dean style, I can knock that out. But for now, I'm gonna get this thing listed up on my website for sale exactly like you see it here. One last thing that I wanted to do on this though is run through that little grading system that we had put together. Now, this is just an arbitrary system that I had assigned myself at the very beginning of season 1 of Flip That Truck. But we've got 5 categories. We kind of score them just to kind of give us a benchmark to measure to from each truck. Now, the first one was quality. This thing started out as a 6, and that's basically just because it's got TRX4 axles, pretty decent. It's got some nice Vanquish wheels on it. The TRX4 transmission is sturdy. Savox servo, not my favorite, but the 1230 is gonna do just fine. And FXR Tekin motor, it's got good parts there. So quality, we started at a 6. Maybe we'll bump it to a 7 now just because it's actually complete. I'm not gonna pat myself on the back and say that this cage work knocks the quality out of the park. It's just something to get it done. But we'll just bump it up 1 point to a 7. Age and generation, previously we had said this was a 7. I think that we're gonna still stay with that. Nothing really changed there. TRX4 axles, still current gen. Flat rail chassis, while this isn't the current generation of a G-Speed chassis, it's still, you're still looking at flat plate chassis, so there's not gonna be too much difference there. So we'll keep that at a 7. Finish, this thing was at a 6 before because it was not finished. The servo or the panhard mount was rotating, the body wasn't mounted, there was just odds and ends kind of that needed wrapped up. We got that done though, and I think as far as that goes, again, my cage work, not the cleanest thing in the world, but we'll take it from a 6 and we'll bump it up to a 7 there as well. Dependability, this before we had as a 5, and that was a lot due to the incomplete state of it. Panhard mount was definitely an issue to me, and just the rest of it being unfinished, no sliders, it couldn't be a truck yet, not at least in a way that I would consider a finished truck. You can mount a body on almost anything and call it ready to go, but it wouldn't be what I would consider. It still doesn't have a front bumper. That's something that I would want to add to protect the chassis. But other than that, now this truck is pretty much ready to go. And other than a front bumper, I would not have many dependability issues with this. The Tekin motor, the Tekin ESC, even the Savox servo, TRX4 axles, it's got machined gears because it's got a significant amount of overdrive in it. So on that dependability area, the only thing that it kind of knocks you down, it was practicality before. It was meant for that small battery, but now with the sliders that we have on there, you could put a 2200 milliamp on this and run for an hour or more at a shot. I think that's a big change there. So the practicality thing, while it's not going to bring it all the way up, dependability, practicality, not all the way up. We still have Traxxas portals, which the upper gears can be a little weak, but from a 5, easily, let's just keep the trend going and go with a 7. Now, lastly, resale. Pile of parts as it was before. Now, finished truck with a little bit of custom tube work. While it is simple, it is unique at least. And while unique is not always a good thing, I think in this case, it's going to be a decent enough addition to what we have here. And then from there, the rest of this is complete. I think it's going to be a truck that performs pretty well, but just everything else, it's got a parts list to it that's all good things, Vanquish wheels, even the Voodoo tires, Tekin, Savox, TRX4 axles, still a good truck. So resale from a 6, I think we're gonna buck the trend and go to an 8 now. I think overall it's gonna give us a score that's pretty respectable, a big jump from its starting score, which is sometimes hard to do on Flip That Truck, at least with my ridiculous scoring system that I arbitrarily created from nothing. But this one I think it came out a winner in that situation. But I'm gonna get this listed on my website, harleydesigns.com. I've got a for sale section there, as well as a specific Flip That Truck section. You'll be able to find this truck in either section. So you can shoot me a message through the website. If you have a trade, I'm definitely interested. I always enjoy looking at your offers for trading. Or I'm gonna be looking for a truck around the value of, say, $600 to $700. We're looking at trucks now that are going to be a nicer truck, not a slightly upgraded stock truck. Not looking for anything 2.2, still staying 1.9s. Axial Traxxas VP, Element. I'm definitely gonna be looking for trucks that have something special about the build at this point. So if you think you have that, definitely shoot me an email either through my website, or you can go onto one of my social media pages on Facebook or Instagram and shoot me a message through there. I'll likely be trying to buy the next truck fairly quickly. So get whatever you've got sent to me as soon as possible. And while calling this type of truck a basic bitch may have rubbed some people's feathers the wrong way, drop what you think a better name would have been in the comments below. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate all of it. Looking forward to the next truck. This one was a fun project, and I'm glad that I'm trying to do a little bit of fabrication with each of these trucks through this season. It's a little bit of something that I have to just try and make sure that I get done. One extra thing, and I know this one took me almost 2 months to get to, but it's been a crazy time since the last episode. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hit the like button before you leave. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. With that, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.